So Kilian, talk about Pennsylvania races. Last night was the Republican primary in Pennsylvania, and we still have not decided who's won this race here. We got Dr. Oz and McCormick. What's his first name again?
David
McCormick. Dead heat right now. Probably going to go to a recount.
Yep.
What's your take on that? Yeah, I mean, you're from the Philly area.
I'm actually from the Poconos. Went to school in Philly, so I'm
area.
from Northeast PA.
Okay.
But that's actually plays a lot into Pennsylvania primaries, the whole regional aspect. People don't understand how big Pennsylvania is and politically diverse it is. It takes 6 hours to drive from east to west in Pennsylvania.
I've done that drive.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
And so you have this big political divide too, and we're kind of seeing that if you look at the map of where these candidates are performing well. McCormick, David McCormick, his home county is listed as Alleghany, and in Pennsylvania they actually show the county next to the candidate's name. So that does give you a bit of a boost there. Alleghany County, that's Pittsburgh, that's McCormick's home territory, and you can see those counties lighting up for him. Same thing when you go to the eastern part of the state. Montgomery County is where Dr. Oz has listed his home in. That's one of the Philadelphia suburbs. That along with Delco and Chester County. So Oz is listed there, so you can see the eastern part of the state lighting up for him, and it's really contentious. It's closer than most people thought. We knew it was going to be tight. No one quite thought this tight. I think right now it's about a 2,000 vote difference between the two. We're watching tens of thousands of mail-in votes come in. So it's a drip effect as these two candidates get closer and farther away from each other. So it's really brutal. Mail-in voting, it's like 2020 all over again, waiting days to find out who the actual winner is, maybe weeks, who knows.
Maybe we should just vote all on election day.
Go figure. Maybe that's a good idea. It's that's what we did for centuries.
Most of American history there. Yeah. But you also have Barnett, who seems to kind of have played a spoiler role at this point in the race. She started surging in the past couple weeks, and you had Hannity go out the other night on Fox and talk about how she's at the January 6th. I don't think at the actual
she wasn't in the Capitol, but she was in the. She was
in the crowd,
6.
which a lot of people went to attend that thing that didn't do anything illegal. Who went and it's just like a typical protester, a rally, something like that. But he kind of tried to go and insinuate that she had done something, criminal there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's important to understand that Sean Hannity, of course, endorsed Dr. Oz fairly early, and I believe Barnett actually did something like 7 appearances on Hannity's radio program and television program before Oz had jumped in. So there was a relationship there, but who knows what happened.
Interesting how you can just go and torch those bridges there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brutal fight. It is a brutal fight. There was something like $30 to $40 million in negative campaign ads thrown around the state. This is going to be an expensive Senate race, especially once we get to the general. I think it's probably going to be one of the most expensive in the country.
Wow. And then we also had the Democratic primary that was yesterday in Pennsylvania, and looks like Lieutenant Governor Fetterman is
John
this guy?
Fetterman, yeah.
Yeah, talk about him.
Yeah,
He's interesting.
Yeah, he's
looks interesting too.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
I forget who put this out, but I saw something on Twitter where it's he looks like your hungover uncle going to the Wawa in the morning, and that kind of works. He's got the hoodie and the goatee and everything. And
well, it's funny because Tom Wolfe is kind of a short guy, and when you see them together, he looks like Tom Wolfe's bodyguard. It's wild, but yeah, he's an interesting guy. He's a Bernie Sanders style socialist candidate. Endorsed Sanders in 2016. I believe Sanders endorsed him, and of course he endorsed Sanders in 2020 as well. But he used to be the mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania, which is a small steel town outside of Pittsburgh, so in western PA again. It's less than 2,000 people live there. It's where Andrew Carnegie had one of his first steel mills. So in the 1920s, I believe it had 20,000 residents, and it's just been on a decline since. He came in, very divisive figure in PA politics. He instituted a bunch of community programs there and used it as a springboard to kind of launch himself into this state career, advocating, again, Bernie Sanders-style socialist programs, where in 2016 he actually ran for Senate. People will remember this, and he got clobbered in the primary. I think he won 1 or 2 counties, his home county. and lost quite badly to Katie McGinty and Joe Sestak that cycle. But built some name ID, and in 2018 he was able to parlay that into his lieutenant governor position.
So is it a joint ticket in Pennsylvania?
No, they're separate.
Separate ticket, kind of like Virginia.
Yes.
You can have. So could you end up with a split party for governor and lieutenant governor?
Yeah.
Okay. Has that happened recently?
Not to my knowledge. I don't think it would. I mean, Pennsylvania is a bit unique in that since they instituted term limits for the governor and lieutenant governor.
Okay.
It's gone 2 terms Republican, 2 terms Democrat, 2 terms Republican, 2 terms Democrat, ceaselessly until 2014 was the first time that broke when Tom Wolf was elected. And if Josh Shapiro, who's the Democrat nominee, wins this go-around, that would be the first time that you would have 2 back-to-back administrations of the same party. But John Fetterman's running for Senate, socialist-style guy. He absolutely clobbered Connor Lamb, the moderate out of Pittsburgh.
Yes, the military guy. He was one of those guys that I noticed in 20. Was it 20? He won the special, right?
Yes, he did.
That was early on in the Trump years. He was one of those almost like factory made Democratic candidates. They all were in the same mold back then, like 2017 and especially the 2018 midterms. It's like they had all these military guys who were running for. Running as Democrats, which I thought was interesting, just based on the kind of Democrats' far left, kind of anti-American agenda that they've had recently. It's like you had these guys running. I didn't understand it, but he was elected then, and then he just gets clobbered last night by Fetterman.
Yeah, if you have a box that says congressman and you took somebody out of it, it would look exactly like Connor Lamb. Mm-hmm. And right now, the Democratic Party doesn't have an appetite for mainstream candidates. They want those radicals. They want the John Fettermans of the world. They want the AOCs, the Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warrens. Mm-hmm. And it's going to cost them. I mean, it's an out-of-touch nomination, and we'll see what happens in November. It was not competitive. Like, even fundraising, everything Fetterman mopped the floor with this guy. Mm-hmm. The only thing that Lamb had was he had every endorsement under the sun. And look where that got him.
It's like endorsements mean anything these days.
Yeah.
If you're a Democrat. But I remember Lamb running as not going to be a rubber stamp for Nancy Pelosi in Congress. But how do you be a Democrat on the national level these days and not be just a rubber stamp for Pelosi in Congress? I mean, they have their voting records. It's you get crushed if you don't vote party line. I mean, the Republicans, you have a lot going on in the GOP conference where they don't always agree on things, but the Democrats are always in lockstep. That party unity is always there. And, you're talking about progressives, they're starting to win some of these races. Like we have Schrader, right, in Oregon, another establishment Democrat, and he's losing to this progressive. Who is that again?
I don't know her name off the top of my head, but Kurt Schrader's losing, or is right now losing his race. I don't think it's been called yet in Oregon, where he's losing to this socialist style, once again, AOC, progressive, ilk candidate, because this party doesn't have any appetite for traditional blue dog Democrats. The days of
or establishment Democrats, because that's not blue dog anymore. That's pretty good.
He's part of the blue dog caucus, but they're not what they used to be in the 80s.
Sure,
the days of Bob Casey Sr. are gone. It is mainstream Nancy Pelosi style hard left Democrat.
Green
You're
New
either
Deal
that
light.
or you're part of the squad.
Yep.
There's no real distinction here.
You falter anytime there's a tough vote, like a $40 billion
anyway,
Ukraine bill. It's like you got to give the Republicans, the House Freedom Caucus, credit that they actually will go out and buck party line on these kind of things. Whereas the Democrats say, we're the squad, we're gonna really shake up Washington, and then push comes to shove. Oh yeah, we'll tag on with Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what happens. It's uncanny, and.
Talk a big game, but they never back it up. Otherwise, do you see that inflation has hit gas prices again? Gas prices are now at least $4 in all 50 states.
It's insane. That's ridiculous. That's a number that is mind-boggling. No point in either of our lives could we have imagined that would be the state in all 50 states in the USA. That's brutal. It's a brutal number, and the White House just denies it. They're going to blame it on
rich people,
the Trump tax cuts, bizarrely, things like that. It's devoid of reality.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's pretty strange. And then we saw the new White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. I think that's how you say it.
Okay.
I got the video here. of her responding to Fox News' Ducey about asking, like, how does the Biden tweet was, how does raising taxes on the rich lower inflation?
The president's Twitter account posted the other day, you want to bring down inflation, let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share. How does raising taxes on corporations reduce inflation?
So, are you talking about a specific tweet?
He tweeted, you want to bring down inflation, let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share.
Look, we have talked about this past year about making sure that the wealthiest among us are paying their fair share. And that is important to do, and that is something that the president has been working on every day when we talk about inflation and lowering costs. And so it's very important that as we're seeing costs rise, as we're talking about how to build a America that's safe, that's equal for everyone and doesn't leave everyone behind. That is an important part of that as well.
But how does raising taxes on corporations lower the cost of gas, the cost of a used car, the cost of food for everyday Americans?
So look, I think we encourage those who have done very well, right, especially those who care about climate change, to support a fair tax code that doesn't charge manufacturers, workers, cops, builders a higher percentage of their earnings, that the most fortunate people in our nation, and not let that stand in the way of reducing energy costs and fighting this existential problem, if you think about that as an example. And to support basic collective bargaining rights as well, right? That's also important. But look, it is, without having a fair tax code, which is what I'm talking about, then like manufacturing workers, cops, it's not fair for them to have to pay higher taxes than the folks who are not paying taxes at all.
Yeah, so that looked like something that Kamala Harris's speechwriter would have written, and she was reading verbatim.
It looks like a seventh grader that didn't read the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rambling. It's incoherent, and it's obvious that the White House is lying. They're flat out lying when they say things like, we need to have the rich pay their fair share to reduce inflation. It's just a talking point that they can force down their far-left policies without taking any of the blame for how runaway spending has caused so much pain for Americans.
Mm-hmm. And the previous propagandist they had, Jen Psaki, at least she, was pretty polished in the BS that she would spout out about these kind of things. I mean, to her credit, she did her job very well. She was a complete propagandist for the Biden administration, but that is what a press secretary kind of has to do in the White House. But
yeah, professional liar. I mean, they'll have to circle back to her.
Yeah, totally. Last thing here, Biden's Ministry of Truth is no more, it seems.
Gone. Done.
Big victory for anyone who actually believes in freedom of speech in America.
Yeah. It's bizarre. It's Orwellian. I don't understand why they ever thought this would be a good idea, to have a government agency decide what is true and what is false. Mm-hmm. The fact that they thought this would ever fly with the American public is baffling.
It's like they got called out on it, and then they shift. Their propagandists like Taylor Lorenz in the Washington Post go out and say, "Oh, well, there's all these far right attacks on the integrity of this, and people were so mean to the proposed director for it, Nina Jankowicz, saying like, oh, they were so terrible to her." It's like she was out there proposing that she should be allowed to go out and edit people's tweets to make sure they said the right thing. If any government official is saying anything close to that, that is a major red flag. And it's great that they cut this there, but the fact that this was even floated is crazy and shows you just how totally out of touch this administration is with the American people.
No, they're off the rails. Yeah.
And we got to be careful. They might try and put this through in another way, be a little bit more subtle with it, but I think, remain vigilant. We got to stop it if it comes back again.
Absolutely. There is no excuse as to why any program remotely looking like this should have ever existed or been proposed.
Mm-hmm. So, goodbye to the Ministry of Peace. Not peace, Ministry of Truth. That's right. That was the other 1984 one, right?
Yeah, Peace is War.
Peace is War, yeah. We've always been at war with Panochinea.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, Kilian, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.